Hope the screen is also visible. So let's get started. Oh, okay. Gratefully. Yes. So we have seen how do we handle this Excel files from your UiPath, and probably today we are going to see how do we handle or invoke other files from one file, or we say how do we uh, invoke XAML files from one file, and also let us also see how do we invoke this macro files. Probably we have seen a bit about macros yesterday, right? Probably we didn't. Oh yeah, we just seen. So today let us see in depth about how do we invoke this macros. Probably it is a simple thing more than that. And also we'll in depth see how do we invoke other XAML files from your main XAML file, or how do you link two different files and make them all run at once. Okay. And also how do you pass information from one XAML file to another XAML file, which is really very important. Okay, so let's get started. So for that, let us just create a new sequence and say invoke workflow demo. So now let us see what is the use of having this multiple XAMLs invoked at once, and also how will it help us to build really big projects. So if we see here, let's go back and see we have something called an Excel demo, right? So we have the XAML Excel demo. So what are we doing here? So we are going into this Excel. Okay, so we have seen how do we execute macros. That is simple, okay, straightforward. Okay. Disable this. So we have two read cell and read cell formulae, and then we have a message box. Okay, cool. So now let me say, in the first, so from this flow, as in, so we have two XAML files here. One is your invoke workflow demo, and the other one is your Excel demo. So I want to invoke your Excel demo from your invoke workflow XAML. So that is just consider this as a function. So how do you define functions in other languages? You declare a name to that function, and then you call that function where you want it to, right? Disturbance from. Yeah. So this is how we write functions. Similarly, we do not have functions in our UiPath. Instead, we have this invoke workflow XAML. So we'll see how will it help us to so this serves us in two ways. One is you can consider each XAML file as a function and call that each and every time that you want, so that it calculates some value and gives you back. And the other way to look at it is this is the way you put all your XAML files together to work as a unit. So now let me say I have this Excel file. Okay, let me go back to my Excel demo. So I have some name there. Okay, so F2. Here in this, let me just use a message box. I'm currently in Invoke workflow XAML. Okay, nice. And then let me have another message box. Again, and Invoke workflow XAML. So this is like your first you have entering, and this is your exit. So let us say instead of currently, let us say exiting. This will be helpful. And here also let us say entering invoke workflow XAML, and this is exiting, right? So this makes sense. So this will be my first step, first message box, which will tell me that I'm entering into my invoke workflow. This is my last step. Everything I do in this XAML, I'll put in between these two. Okay. So now here I want in this, so when I enter into this, I want to display this message and then go back to your Excel demo and then execute this and then come back to my main XAML and then execute this part. So I want the control to go from my Invoke workflow demo XAML to your Excel demo XAML, right? So this is like you're calling this XAML from this XAML. So it's like how you call a function from another main function. Similarly, you're calling other Excel XAML files from your main file. So how do we do that? So we have something called invoke. Okay, so you have something called invoke workflow file. So let me drag and drop that. So this would do that function calling as whatever we were talking about. So now here I have to tell which XAML file do I have to invoke. So you can click on this, which will open a browser window, and then I say Excel demo. So I'm selecting this. I can select this also. So it will be like calling itself, and this loop will go on forever. So we'll see that also towards the end of the class. So first, let us take our Excel demo. So now if you see, it says in my invoke workflow, I'm entering, showing a message box, and then I go into, I have something called invoke workflow file, and then I have something called exiting message box, right? So now how do I know that I'm in the Excel demo? I need to have at least one message box. Do we have any here? Oh yes. So only if this XAML is getting executed, then you will get these two values, correct? The value of this cell is and the formula of this cell is, right? So now let us go to my Invoke workflow and I'm running this XAML. I'm not running Excel demo. Instead, I'm running my Invoke workflow demo. So now when I trigger this, okay, so this is the first message box, which says it is entering Invoke workflow XAML. So this was our first message box. And then so if you see the value of the cell, so this was a message box from your Excel demo, right? This was not inside your actual XAML. So let us give an OK. And this is the formula. And then if you see the control has come back to your Invoke workflow, it says exiting Invoke workflow XAML. So if you just look through all of this, so your first XAML, first message box was this, entering Invoke workflow. And then the control directly went into something else and it actually has opened and closed this Excel. And then you see that the message box was coming from your Excel demo. And next you have this something called the next message box, and then control came back to your actual Invoke workflow demo, and this is how you have closed it. All right. So is that clear as how do we invoke other XAML files? This is really important because this we will be using in large scale. I want everybody to be clear on this. Okay. Okay, one more time. Okay, cool. So just put an example. You have this Excel demo. When you trigger this, what is going to execute? Only that specific XAML is going to be executed. Correct. So if you see this, okay. So this is reading Excel and then the message boxes. Right. So there is only this Excel demo XAML has got executed. So though in this project, so if you see everything of this is under your demo project. So when I execute only my Excel demo and that is staying in this tab and then clicking on run, only this specific XAML is executed. The other ones are not executed. Neither invoke workflow demo has been executed nor main.xaml has executed. I do not want this. I want, so I want from my invoke workflow, I want, so when I run this XAML, I want Excel demo also to be executed. So just consider this as a function. So you write a function in some other file and then you import that file before you start your execution, correct? So just like in just consider in case of a Python, you write a Python file with a different name and then you say import that Python file name. So that imports all the functions that are available in the different file. Similarly here, if you want to invoke your another XAML, or this could be a XAML file or a function. So basically we are calling these as XAMLs, but UiPath treats all of these as just objects. So when you are triggering from your Invoke workflow, you want Excel demo to be called in between. So while I'm executing my Invoke workflow, I want the control to go to Excel demo, execute everything that is there in this file, and then come back to this, right? So for doing that, we are invoking this XAML. How do you invoke? So there is some activity called invoke workflow file. So you drag and drop that here, and then you tell which XAML file do you want to open. So for doing that, you can click on this. So this will show you all the available XAML files in that specific folder, and then you can select one and click on open. So that will take the path of that file. So once you have this path, you are set. So when I run this code, so now I'm currently running only my Invoke workflow. The control actually starts from this Invoke workflow. It goes to your message box, and then it comes to Invoke workflow and goes to the XAML that is specified in this Invoke workflow. The control will shift from your Invoke workflow to your Excel demo. So you will have your control here, and then in this XAML file, if you see, you have your Excel application scope. So this will be executed, and then you have your message boxes. This will be executed, and later, after executing of this complete XAML, the control will again come back to your main flow or the caller function. So let us say this is a caller function, and this is a called function. So after execution of the complete called function, it will come back to your caller function and then execute the rest part. So then it will execute this message box. Clear? So let us try running this again and see how it goes. So this is my first, which is in my Invoke workflow. So if you see, this is the message box. So it says entering Invoke workflow XAML. So we are here. Click on OK. And then if you see, the next message box has come up from your Excel demo, right? Though we have invoked only Invoke workflow demo, the flow has moved to Excel demo and it has been showing this message box, right? So this is the value, and post this you will get the formula value. This also is from your Excel message box, Excel demo, right? And now if you see, the control will go back to your Invoke workflow because everything has been executed there, and now it says exiting Invoke workflow XAML. So this is being displayed. So if you just track the flow of your XAML files, this Invoke workflow is the first one that we have executed. So it will come here, execute this. Then we have this Invoke workflow, the control will go to your invoked flow and then come back to your message box. So now let me say I want to go to another file, main also. So what is there in main? So in my main, I have something called, okay. So let us just have a single message box here and then tell in main.xaml file. Okay. So whenever the control comes into your main, it will just give you a message box. Let me comment this. Just now. Hotspot. See, my connection point. Okay, one sec. Okay. Am I audible? Looks like there has been a disconnection. Are people able to hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah. So when we are in our main, yeah. So when we are in our main, we'll just have this message box which tells in main XAML file. So now if you see, from this single XAML, I want to go to Excel, and after that I want to go to my main, right? So what do? I just use another invoke XAML and then tell now go and invoke your main, right? So now if you see, first the control would start from here, go to your Excel demo, and then comes out. Is my video struck or visible to others? Looks like someone is having a problem. Okay, is it stuck for everyone? Okay, okay. What can I do? Okay, I'll just stop presenting and then present again. Paused. Is it visible now? I've just paused and restored it. No. Oh, this shouldn't be the problem. Okay. Can someone let me know when they're able to see? Okay, looks like it says waiting for next screen. Oh, is it so? Probably that is the reason. Just a minute. Okay. Let me just connect this back to my own iPhone. Okay, is it visible now? It's probably, the power cut is on and off, and that is the reason. Okay, it should be visible now. I see, I get greens. Yes, okay. So can all confirm if they're able to see the screen? Okay, cool. Yeah. So probably everyone is able to see enough. Yes, let's get ahead. So now, okay, where were we? Yeah, we were at main. So we want to invoke both of this, all the available XAMLs in your under your project when you invoke a single XAML. So now I have my invoke workflow demo. I run this single file. This will go and invoke my Excel demo, and then after executing that, then it will go and invoke my other main XAML also. So there are two ways of doing it. So let us see this way, that everything is invoked from a single XAML file, right? So now let us run this. So you have your entering invoke. So this is your first entrance XAML file. This is the first activity that you have in your invoke workflow. So this is something from your Excel, and then this is in your main XAML file, right? And after executing the main, you're coming back to your invoke workflow and then exiting the code, right? Is that clear? So you can invoke any number of XAML files from your code. from a single XAML. So there are also logical ways of doing it that we don't do all of them at once. So just consider if you have a dependency of Excel demo before you invoke your main, then you'll make sure that your Excel demo is invoked first and then your main XAML, right? So now let us see other way of doing it. So I do not want the control to come back to my invoke workflow before invoking main. I want to go to invoke and then Excel demo, and from this Excel demo I want to go to main. So it's like nested if, right? So you have an if, within that if you have another if. Similarly, you have this nested invoke. So what do? You just cut this and put it inside your. So this is going to invoke your main XAML file, right? So wherever you put this, whenever the control is coming to this specific activity, it is going and triggering your other XAML file, right? So now if you see, so this is my invoke. So I trigger my XAML file. I trigger my robot from here. So I get my first message box, then go into Excel demo. And then after getting into Excel demo, it will first go and read from this Excel file, right? So it is going to read from this file. Sorry. And then you have this message box, which will give you the cell details. And before you get your formula of the cell, you are invoking your main. So let us say, so this, this message box will give you an information about in which XAML file is your control. So that is why I put in between these two. So now in this, if it comes to main.xaml, and then it goes into your main and executes this main XAML file. And then instead of going to your invoke workflow, it will go into your Excel demo, because this is the caller function now. Your invoke Excel workflow is not your caller. Instead, your Excel demo is the caller. From this Excel demo, after executing everything of this, then it will again go back to your invoke workflow. Right? Is that clear, or is that a bit confusing? So let us run this and see. So currently, if you see, I'm just invoking my invoke workflow XAML, just one single XAML. Yeah, I'll do that. So first, let us see. So this is your first message box, which is coming from your invoke workflow XAML. Given okay, and then the control will go to your Excel demo. Yes, it has went there. So this is the cell value. And now when I click on this, okay, it should go to your main XAML. Oh yes, it went. So because you see this message box coming from main XAML file, so the control currently is in your main XAML. Given okay, and then the control has come back to your Excel. So if you get back to your code and see, so in between your cell value, you have received your main. So the message box from your main, and then you have this formula. And now once you give this okay, you directly again come back to your main XAML file. Okay, so it's just exiting invoke workflow XAML, right? Okay, so let me put this in a different way, which might help. So now let us think you have a big project, right? Oh, I just wanted to pick shapes. Okay, so this is your project. So let us say this is our complete project. Okay, and now inside this project, you have three different XAML files. So you have your main, and let me call this the other one as Excel demo, and the third one as what was the third one? Invoke workflow, right? So let me say this is my main, and then this is your Excel, and this is your invoke, right? Now so the control is like when you trigger this, only this single XAML file will execute. If you trigger this, only this will execute. If you trigger this, only this will execute actually, right? But instead I want, so when I trigger this invoke alone, I want this invoke to execute. Excel to execute, and this main also to execute. So for that, what do I do? Inside this invoke, I'll have this invoke workflow XAML activity, which I'm linking to my Excel, right? So this link, whatever we are giving, is your invoke workflow. And inside your Excel, you are again having one more invoke workflow. And in this invoke workflow is going to main. So this is invoke workflow XAML, right? So let us just mention that here. So this is your invoke workflow XAML, sorry, activity, right? So if you see here, so this is your invoke workflow, right? So that is this. So first you have your invoke. So this is from where your control is coming in, or you're triggering your robot from this specific XAML. You can invoke it from main also. I'm just using this now. Okay. So now, so if you see, I'm actually running my robot from invoke workflow demo, right? So that is here, and then the control from here is going to my Excel, correct? So it is going to Excel using this invoke workflow. So if you see here, this is the special activity that is moving it from Excel workflow to your Excel demo, right? So once your control is in your Excel demo, everything that is available in this Excel demo will be executed. So it just uses this Excel application scope to read, and then gives you this message box. And after that, you're again using your invoke workflow. So that is your invoke workflow inside your Excel. So this invoke workflow will again invoke your main. So that is where from this main, you're going to your main XAML file. Okay, so this is your main. And now once you are done executing your main, your control will again come back in the same order. It will come back to your Excel, and then it will execute the rest parts after this activity. And after this is executed, it will again go back to your invoke. Right? Is that clear now? Yes. Any doubts? Any more specific doubts with respect to this thing? So it is just like you call a function. So you call a function, first everything in that function is executed, and then control will come back to the main function from where it is being called. Okay. So now that we have seen how do we invoke these things, next let us see how do we pass data through to each of these XAML files, right? Okay. So now let us create a proper XAML, this proper files, which will be really helpful to understand this transfer of data from each XAML file to other XAML file. I guess we had this thing right in your state machines. Okay, anyways. So let me say a web, or say amazon.xml. And I will use Excel demo only. In my main, I will have the delete this my sheet 3. I'll go to my A2. Okay, and then I'll extract it, put it in double. Then let me say the conversion rate today is okay. So I'll show you what exactly am I doing currently. So let me go to my main. So now let us create a small project where you will go and extract the the online price of a specific product in anywhere, maybe in any website, and then also extract the current transfer rate, exchange rate of for dollar to INR, and then you do a multiplication and then give your value, right? So let me say for that, okay, so we open a browser and then go to amazon.com. We use a type into and then get text. Then here, just say I want to search for something like Amazon Kindle reader. Oh no. Let me just get the price. And now I've extracted the price. And now if you see, I have the extracted price in my Amazon, this thing, right? So let me just create a variable and say the price, a string, and this is the scope. Okay. So let me just have a message box here. This is the price. So now if we run this, okay. Why is that? Okay. So we also want to close this browser once we open it. We do not want the browser to be open, right? So what do? We just say close application. And then you give that field. So from now going forward, we did not have to close that browser every time we use it. So now we are into Amazon. Okay, so this is the price. Okay, now I have this price available inside my Amazon XAML, correct? So if I want to execute this from my main, okay. Oh, this is okay. This could be necessary. I'll use this Invoke workflow and say now you go and trigger Amazon, right? So now this will go and trigger your Amazon, and Amazon will get information from your XAML from your Amazon website. That is fine. But now I want that value to be present in my Excel, right? So in my Excel, let me say, okay, let us create another small project. Get exchange rate. So let me enter this Google homepage. Let me give here the same thing that I've typed, $2 INR. And next I want to extract the value that is present in this specific value, correct? So let me create a string variable and say this is exchange rate, correct? So now I have my exchange rate in my get exchange rate XAML file. Exchange rate for dollar to INR is right, and then let me have a message box here. The price of Kindle Reader in dollars is okay. So now from my main, I want to show the total price that will cost of that will cost for the Amazon Kindle Reader in India. Okay. So now here I want to do the multiplication value of, or let me say, so I got the terms in terms of your, so this is going to be a float value maybe. So let us give a double. Can okay. So I want this value to be populated in my main XAML, right? So that I can display it back to the user. I cannot do it anywhere else because in my Amazon, I only have the value in dollars. In my get exchange rate, I have the value available only of the exchange rate, but not of the Amazon Kindle Reader price. So now I want to have a medium to communicate between these two XAML files, correct? And what is the advantage of doing this in two different files? Just to overcome this problem, I could have just done the same, this get exchange rate complete activities in my single XAML file and would have done that. But the problem is, if you face any problem with any of the one specific activity, it will be really tough because your XAML grows in size. So just imagine this small XAML of Amazon now you have has this small open browser and all this stuff. In your get exchange rate, also you have very similar values, correct? Okay, let me also use my close application here. It would be really tough to actually understand from where the error has come if in case you have any errors, right? So now what we do is usually, or the actual coding standard is, you need to put things separate in separate XAML files and then use them all together, because it is very good to have code modularization, as well as it is easy to find out if there is any error with respect to any specific activity or any specific sequence. So now the challenge is we have information in our separate XAMLs, right? But I want this information to be available in my main XAML. I want that information to be available here. So how do I do it? So currently I have invoked my Amazon XAML, and then let me invoke the other one also. So this is get exchange rate open. So for now, let me comment this out. Okay. So now if we run, it would be really easy because we have those two values separate in two different XAML files. So let us see. Okay, I have disturbed the flow. Let me rerun this. So let's get back and start. So currently from the main, we have triggered Amazon in the first place. Okay, so this is the price of Kindle Reader. Okay. So it says there is some problem with get exchange rate. Is it so? Oh, yes. Okay. Since we did not put that in double quotes, it was expecting that to be a variable and it was not able to find that. That is the reason. So anyways, let us run this. So this is the price of Kindle Reader. And now we have gone into that next XAML. So this is into get exchange rate. So the exchange rate for dollar to INR is some value, and now we are back, right? I forgot to put this message boxes, but probably it should be clear that we are into which XAML we are into in Amazon.xml file. In get exchange file. So in my main, I do not have those two informations at all. So now I want to get information from each of these, and in my main I want to calculate the actual file, actual price. So here after this, let me just tell main XAML file. So now we are in main XAML file. So let us see how. So now let us see how do we transfer information from one XAML file to other XAML files. So now my information that extracted is currently present in my get exchange rate, right? So this is the XAML file which is containing that information. So it is in this value called get exchange rate. Oh, sorry, exchange rate. So what is the name of the variable? It is exchange rate. Correct. So now I want this value to be available in my main, or I want this value to be moved to my main. So for that you have something called arguments, right? They are very similar to your variables. We have seen in the earlier classes that how do we create arguments. So I just say price in dollar, right? Because no, this is exchange rate, right? So let me say dollar to INR underscore argument, right? So this is the argument. But what is this in type and out type? So do you want the information to flow into this XAML file or go out of this XAML file? Right? So that is the direction. So for now, I do not need any information to come into this XAML file. Instead, I want the information to go out of this XAML file. So whatever value that I have here, which is my exchange rate, should go out. It should not be coming in. Instead, it should go out to the file that is calling. So I will set that to out. Right? So now let me save this. But I did not assign any value to this argument. Correct? So currently it is empty. So I will just use a simple assign, and so this is my argument, right? Into this argument I will just give my exchange rate. So this argument value So this argument is currently containing is the value in my exchange rate is being fed into the argument. So, but where will I use this argument? I will go to my main. I will tell import arguments, right? So when I do that, all the arguments that I create in my actual XAML file will be available or visible in this file, right? Or in this specific activity at least. So if you go back and see the variables that will not be available here, it will be available only inside this activity. So the $2INR argument will be valid or available only in this specific activity and nowhere else. So what will I do? I will create a variable here and I'll tell exchange rate. So this is the variable that I'm creating inside my main, correct? So now I'll say edit arguments. So this value, whatever is coming out, will be copied into my local variable, correct? Is that clear? So the value is actually extracted from the website browser inside this get exchange rate, and it is extracted and kept in this variable exchange rate. And then I'm creating a variable which is of type argument. So sorry, I'm creating an argument which will carry this information from this get exchange rate to my main. So if you see, when I say edit arguments or import arguments, only arguments are visible here, right? You have so many variables also inside this. So you have this exchange rate variable, but is it visible here? So you go and click on your edit arguments. No, it is not. So only arguments that you create in the local file or in the XAML file will be available in your caller function or in your caller XAML. So this is your main, from where you are actually extracting information from your get exchange rate, right? So now let us see if we are getting this information or not. So let us use a message box after this in main XAML file and say exchange rate, right? So now let us run this. So if you see, firstly, it will directly go to your Amazon and then extract the dollar price of Kindle, and it will come to main. Oh, we are in the main. From this main, again, we'll go into get exchange rate, and then we'll come back. And then we'll have this message box of the exchange rate. Excuse me. So we are actually displaying the value of the exchange rate, which is extracted in a different XAML from the main flow, right? So let us run this. So it says, so currently we went directly into your main or Amazon XAML file. So this is the message box that is coming from your Amazon XAML file, right? We did not come into main XAML yet. So I give an OK. Now we are into our main. So this is what it tells. And now we are into get exchange rate. So now this is the conversion rate. So this is the conversion rate that is coming in from your this value. Given OK. So now we are back into your main, and here also you are able to extract your exchange rate. Correct? Similarly, we will create another argument in my Amazon XAML and then pass that information back into your main. So how do I do that? Create an argument. So what is that? That is the price. Price underscore dollar. This also is going to be out direction, right? This is not an in. This is out. Okay. So we are in our arguments. So we create this. So let us save. And then go to main. And here also we'll tell import arguments. So the moment we say import arguments, we'll see this argument name coming here. So let us create another variable here. is in right. Edit arguments and give argument. So this will have value come back into your actual main XAML. But did I assign this value here? No, I didn't. Let me give a sign. Okay, let me change this name just for the better understanding. So price dollar argument should contain price that I've extracted from this XAML, right? Let me save main arguments, price and dollar arguments, and price dollar. Okay, so let us save this, and here also let us try to display the exchange rate from in.xml. And here is what price in dollar from main file. Okay, so now let us, and now when we run this, so you are currently in your Amazon. Okay, the net bandwidth has decreased probably. What's wrong with this? Okay, let me stop the robot and retry. Looks like there's some problem. Video is stuck. Is the video stuck? Actually, it was not loading. Okay. Is it visible now? Yes, visible now. Okay. This random parkets now there is really causing a big trouble. Okay, probably we are also towards the closing time, so we'll continue this part from in the next class. Fine.